It's confession time. I want to tell you the biggest mistake I've ever made in my digital marketing career and what you can learn from it. Now, I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to mention specific jobs or places I was working, but basically the biggest mistake I ever made was when I incorrectly set up a promotional code for a website. So it was a code that normally, when it worked properly, and when I'd set it up correctly in the past, you'd put the code in and you'd get a discount, and that discount would only work once. Unfortunately, I was in a rush this particular day when I was setting up this code, and what happened was basically I set up the code in such a way that you could keep using it over and over again. So you would take that 10% and you would be able to take 10% off your $100, bring it down to 90, then you could take 10% off the 90, and so on and so forth. It was like reverse compounding interest. Not a good place to be, and I felt terrible about it. And ultimately we did fix the problem, but people had used this code, goods were shipped out and that had been purchased at massive discounts, and I just felt terrible about it, and I wasn't exactly a flavour of the month around the office, to put it that way. But what is the lesson that comes out of this? What can we learn to basically prevent you from doing these kind of things yourself with your own websites and your own digital marketing? Basically what we learn here is that you need to test things. Whenever you build something, a new coupon code if you're doing e-commerce, or a new sequence in your marketing automation if you're doing marketing automation, or an email campaign, or a new Google Ads campaign, or anything like that, wherever there is a risk of something going wrong, you need to test it. It's a bit like when Boeing or Airbus test a plane. They don't just do a little test, they really get in depth and they really look at how they can basically eliminate as much as possible the risk of something going wrong. And you should be doing the same thing with your digital marketing as well. Obviously, if you don't have coupons, you don't have to worry about people taking extra money off, but I've seen plenty of things go wrong. For example, when a website has a contact form, and that contact form plugin, if it's a WordPress site, might update, and suddenly the contact form no longer works. And people come to the site and they type in their name and email address, and they hit submit, and what happens? Nothing. Because the inquiry just disappears off into thin air, and that can have a real detrimental effect on a business. But once again, if you test these things, you prevent this from happening. So the key message is always be testing. Every time you build something, test it. If you set up a new form on your website, test it. If you change something in the checkout process, test it. If you put a new piece of your marketing automation system in place, test it. Make sure that you have tested it thoroughly, so that if something goes wrong, you can identify it before it becomes a risk to the financial viability of your business in some respects. I've worked on some projects where literally thousands, tens of thousands, possibly even hundreds of thousands of dollars of business has been lost out on.
Everything burns.
So this stuff has a real impact. So I implore you to test everything thoroughly when you build anything. Emails, marketing automation, advertising campaigns, forms, websites, you name it. Test them. You will not regret any time you spend on testing. It will make you sleep easier at night, and you will be able to rest safely in the knowledge that things are working the way they should, and you are getting the most out of your efforts.